Welcome to Identiverse 2025. We're here recording live from the CyberRisk TV studio on the expo floor at the Mandalay Bay Conference Center in Las Vegas. I'm your host, Adrian Sanabria, and joining me for this interview is Ajay Amlani, President and CEO of Aware.
Thanks, Adrian,
Welcome.
for the opportunity.
Yeah. So Aware, I do recall, so I do a podcast and we have a news segment and we cover like all the new companies that come out and funding, acquisitions, all that kind of activity.
Yeah.
A lot of us on the show at least used to be ex-analysts, or actually still are. Yeah, Jackie's still an ex-analyst. And so tell me a little bit about Aware. I remember it crossing, we talked about it in one of the shows, but it's left my brain entirely, so catch me up.
Yeah, sure. We're actually a 30-year veteran of biometric technology. We've been experimenting with this technology, and were hired by the FBI originally when they were actually doing fingerprint-based background checks in a digital fashion back in the mid-'80s and '90s.
Aware's been around that long?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
It was actually founded by 4 MIT PhDs who were asked by the federal government to create a common fingerprint standard. And then since then, we've been developing face biometric technology, iris-based technology, voice technology, and also working on ways to be able to secure biometrics going forward, especially for today's day and age and the attackers that the world is seeing.
Yeah, and it's so interesting because biometrics has been around forever,
Yeah.
but it's evolved so much.
Yeah.
It's changed so much.
It's absolutely crazy. I was actually terrified of biometrics when I first came across it. And
Yeah.
the reason is Because Minority Report.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You know, watching Tom Cruise get his eyeballs replaced,
Yeah.
only to then have creepy spiders come around and do iris matching on him, right? It was absolutely horrific for me. But then post 9/11, I actually wanted to do something for the country. So I signed up to work in the White House and helped start the Department of Homeland Security. Tom Ridge, the Secretary of Homeland Security at the time, the first one, he actually assigned me to work on a lot of our advanced technology that we were deploying to be able to amplify the efforts of Homeland Security. And he aligned with biometrics as one of the technologies to help secure our country, but yet still allow for the free flow of people and commerce.
So around airport security, border security, that kind of thing, or more broadly than that?
Yeah, at the time it was actually focused around port security, right? So we have our nation's largest land ports within San Diego, and also on the northern border in my hometown of Detroit, Michigan, is also a very large port. And then also airports as well. And being able to identify people accurately within airports was a really big imperative for us, so that people could still believe that they could have open doors when they come to the country, but yet we can still have secure borders.
And it's really cool. You know, I've talked to some identity verification companies, some biometric companies, and it seems cool that we are at a point where cameras are good enough quality that from across, you know, in a building lobby, from considerable distance, you know, you can do that face verification so that by the time somebody gets to an entry point, gets to a man trap, you know, whatever the physical security is,
That's right.
they can just walk on through. They don't even have to slow down.
Yeah, exactly. So we're actually deploying a lot of that technology today for the federal government, and we've been the go-to agency for a very long time, the go-to company to be able to partner with all of our government agencies to allow them to deploy biometrics at scale. It does actually get really complicated when you deploy biometrics at scale. Right now, the commercial world is really doing kind of selfie checks and other things on a one-to-one basis off of a driver's license and verifying the driver's license is real and then doing a one-to-one match. We've been doing very complicated biometric systems for decades. We really understand all the challenges that are associated with trying to deploy these at scale. And our biometric engineers and our scientists are some of the best in class US citizens that have been deploying this on behalf of the US government. And now that the commercial world is in fact engaging into biometrics, it's a really exciting time for us.
Mm. And it's you know, there's a lot of things that you don't necessarily think about in terms of, like earlier today we were talking about, or maybe it was yesterday, it's all blurred together.
Yeah, that's okay. It's a long conference.
Yeah.
We've only been here 2 days.
Like leaving a building, like that's something you want to capture as well. You know, and using face identification for that. Like, I don't just want to know when somebody's entered a building and do the access check there.
That's right.
But it's also, if I'm doing an investigation, I want to know how long they were there, when they physically left the building. Like, that's important information as well.
Yeah, that's right. And the physical location entry and access has now actually migrated towards digital access as well.
Yeah.
And that's why we're here, right, at this conference, because from our perspective, a lot of people are guessing at who the person is.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are just guessing at whether or not it is in fact a person.
Right.
And our technology allows you to be able to use both best-in-class matching algorithms to verify that the person is who they say they are, but also that they are in fact a human by using a technology that we call liveness.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's again. So, having with Aware having been doing it so long, how much of this really depended on technology getting to the point where we had the ability to do depth perception, high enough resolution? Like, how much of that was kind of required to get to this point?
A lot of it, actually.
Yeah.
The early deployments of biometrics, when I first deployed biometrics at the airports, we had purpose-built hardware, big fingerprint systems, purpose-built cameras, and what I recognized was actually consumers preferred using biometrics over being asked a series of big intrusive questions or trying to prove that they are who they say they are. Instead, just look in the camera and put your fingerprint down.
Yeah.
I recognized that it was very much a consumer tool, which is when I launched Clear, the airport security fast line, to be able to allow people to get easy access through airport security by just using their biometrics.
It does seem less intrusive. I wonder, just kind of going off script here, how much of an issue, like one of the things we've noticed with passwordless is it feels to a lot of people as less secure. Because their whole life they've been trained that a password keeps your account secure.
That's right.
And all of a sudden, you give them a system where they press the login button and they're just in.
They're in.
Like they don't see the exchange of authentication data, so it feels very dangerous to them that
100%.
that happened like that. And I wonder, like, also with physical security and biometrics getting to the point where our face is identified, 30 seconds before we actually reach the entry point. Like, are we going to run into that same, like maybe some training needs to be done there for people to feel comfortable with it? Is it going to feel less secure to people?
Yeah.
Like, do people push for things that are unnecessary just so that it feels more secure?
Yeah, it's fascinating to think about that customer perception. And the interesting part about passkeys is when you anchor passkeys on a really weak foundation in the first place, which is a user ID and password.
Yeah.
How good is that passkey really? How secure is it? So I actually think consumers have a right to feel concerned.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, if you've anchored it on an unsecure password and username in the first place, that becomes a significant challenge. And so using biometrics actually does allow people to have the comfort and the confidence that they can prove that they are who they say they are. If you think about face biometrics in general, I mean, people learn how to recognize faces when they're 3 months old. So it's very innate. All we're doing is replicating that with technology today. So it's very intuitive for people to be able to use biometrics to prove who they say they are. They do it when they walk into their favorite coffee shop, right, or their favorite restaurant, and they're asked, do you want the usual? Sure, right? And they know somebody else is just recognizing their face. All we're doing is replicating that experience online to be able to make it very fast and very easy for customers to be able to be rewarded and recognized instead of having to go and jump through hoops trying to basically prove they are who they say they are.
One of the other trends I found interesting is that a lot of identity verification companies seem to be depending on consumer hardware these days. Like onboarding for, make sure you're not North Korean, or whatever the concern might be. Kind of depend on you having a modern smartphone in your pocket, which I find kind of fascinating because it's a consumer-owned device, but it's become such an essential part of corporate security.
That's right.
Yeah, more of a. I don't know if you have anything to add to that, but I just find that is kind of odd that that's just the way the technology is developed. That the best quality cameras you have when you're at home, you're trying to get a job, trying to get through the identity verification process, is something that you choose to buy in your own.
That's right. And actually, even the introduction of things like Windows Hello and Face ID and other things like that are tied to the device itself, they do leverage biometrics. The hard part is they haven't actually identified the person up front.
Yeah.
So they're leveraging the biometrics, basically matching against whoever was the first person who enrolled on that device. And you're not ever verifying that the person is in fact a person or the right person. You're just using potentially a deepfake image to begin with to do the enrollment. And now corporations are actually relying upon these systems like Face ID and Windows Hello and others to now link in with pass keys
Yeah.
to secure their enterprise, never verifying that the owner of the phone or the owner of the biometric is in fact the right person that should be accessing
At the
their
enrollment
systems.
point.
At the enrollment point.
Yeah, interesting.
Yep.
Yeah, so it seems like everything is going towards face. So it's interesting. Windows Hello will do face, but only with certain hardware.
Yes.
So I have mostly Windows devices, though I do have an iPhone, and I still use fingerprint on all my Windows devices,
Yeah.
whereas I use face with all my Apple devices because I guess none of my cameras are Windows Hello compatible. So, do we see everything going towards face now and kind of away from fingerprints in terms of biometrics?
I mean, fingerprints historically have always been a law enforcement way of identifying yourself. I think the availability and the footprint on devices is actually pretty small for fingerprint. It is a touch sensor, it's relatively small. It can only really recognize one finger at a time. Face is sort of the intuitive way to be able to allow for biometric recognition. It's the way that we all recognize each other, right, walking around. It also avoids some of the challenges of touch, which is, like as an example, you grab pizza before this interview, right? Your hands might have been oily. Being able to put that on top of a device, that could have actually been interesting and hard to be able to recognize you.
Yep.
Whereas your face is always your face. You might change a little bit over time. You might shave, you might do different things like that. But for the most part, the basic features of your face, especially leveraging tools like AI, to be able to accurately predict that you are who you say you are, all of our algorithms are basically trained on, at scale. And that's the other benefit is you get at scale data sets to be able to train on, making face the viable option that it is today. Whereas historically, it wasn't as viable of an option 10 years ago.
Yeah, it makes sense. So really, kind of combining biometrics and identity, it seems like even with passkeys, with face scanning, it seems like everything is it just me, or is easier becoming also associated with more secure way of doing things? Like
That's fascinating.
Do we still want to do face plus something else, or how do you see that evolving into the future?
That's really fascinating. I hadn't thought about that before, and so it is actually evolving into convenience and security, where you're not having to sacrifice either, right, or both. And so with face, what's interesting is you think about multi-factor authentication. Everywhere we go, we bring our face. Our face is actually a thing. So it's actually something we carry. Normally, when you think about multi-factor authentication, you think about factor 1, which is what you know, factor 2, which is what you carry, and factor 3, which is who you are. Who you are is biometrics. That's always been the third factor.
Right.
And but factor 2 is what you carry. Guess what? You also carry your face everywhere you go. So it is in fact a thing. So doing a biometric match in one instance is in fact a multi-factor authentication. And if you verify that the face itself is actually a live face using liveness and best-in-class liveness tools like Aware's technology, you're able to conduct multi-factor authentication all in one transaction. No more OTPs, no more downloading apps for authenticators. Being able to actually conduct that both in one transaction is a huge benefit for society and for organizations as well to protect the enterprise.
Wow. Yeah, that's a lot to chew on. Yeah, that's it's fascinating. But yeah, I mean, that's something I've loved about it is it really is. I love when there's an opportunity where the best thing you can do is also the most secure thing, right? And kind of naturally reduces that friction. It's something I push back on a lot. Were security keys.
Yeah.
Like everybody's raving about. And I understand why people like security keys, hardware keys, but I'm also old enough to have carried multiple RSA tokens with me.
Yeah.
The old 6-digit changes every 60 seconds or 30 seconds, and I've got a phone in my pocket. Like, why am I going back? Why am I going back to keychains for things?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting to see how it's going to evolve going forward.
I can't tell you how many CISOs I've known that have gotten fired for forcing their workforce to have to carry another thing with them also, right? It's a real big stress, and it's a real big challenge for people to hold on to something like that. They inevitably lose it, which then opens up the opportunity for bad actors to be able to get their hands on it. And they have to get it reissued. And then, so you have to build in a reissuance process anyway to be able to get a new token. What is that reissuance process? What are you anchoring that identity on? a username and password? No, you have to anchor it on a biometric in the first place. So if you have to anchor something on a biometric in the first place, just use a biometric to authenticate it in the first place. It makes the most sense. I mean, back when I worked with the Department of Defense launching their first ever Silicon Valley unit of the DoD, we protected our nation's infrastructure from bad actors, from third-party nation-state actors. And those tools in hands of the nation-state actors are now in the hands of everyday adversaries that are attacking our systems nonstop, left and right. And they've been democratized. Those tools are now low-cost capabilities, and the attackers are actually sharing all best practices that they use to attack our systems. So we need to stay one step ahead or two steps ahead, ideally, to be able to protect our enterprise and monitor these bad actors to see what they're doing. A lot of them are in the process of creating deepfakes right now. They're creating deepfakes to be able to pretend like they are someone that they're not on videos. They're creating deepfakes to be able to trick biometric systems today that are being deployed. So just using proper liveness tools is a really important component to be able to protect your enterprise.
Yeah. AJ, fascinating conversation,
Thank
giving
you.
us a lot to think about. I appreciate you sitting down with me.
Really great. Appreciate the opportunity, Adrian. Thank you.
All right, to find out more about Aware, you can visit securityweekly.com/AwareIDV. For all Identiverse 2025 coverage, you can visit securityweekly.com/IDV. Thanks again, AJ.
Thank you, Adrian. Appreciate it. Thanks.